What looks a lot like an HP Spectre x360 15-inch but costs about half as much, it's the HP Envy x360. Envy is the more affordable line, a similar looking design though. We're going to compare it a little bit to the Spectre x360 in fact. This one goes up against the Dell Inspiron 7000 series 2-in-1 15-inch, just about the same price, in fact in similar specs. We're going to look at it now. Thanks to our sponsor, a totally fun game called Vikings. I love old school RPGs and strategy games, and this brings it to the world of MMO on mobile. You can play nation versus nation, go to war or win with a rocking economy, or become the head of your clan. With 20 million players, that's a lot of action here, and I'm gonna go for the money and have the most prosperous city myself. Interesting fact, Vikings games recently reached 20 million players. That's over 10 times the total number of real-life Vikings that ever lived. Don't miss it. Let's make Vikings reign again. Install the game right now using the links in the description right below, and you get 200 gold and an initial protection shield for supporting my channel. Click it. So the Envy x360, we have the 15T model. That's the Intel 8th generation CPU. In fact, it's a nice Core i7-8550U clocked at 1.8 gigahertz. That's the 15-watt Ultrabook CPU, but now quad-core in Intel 8th gen land, which is awesome. If you go with the 15Z, and HP's been doing this for a long time, T is Intel, Z is AMD, you can get an AMD Ryzen 5 version of this now. The performance on that and the drivers on that haven't been so awesome. It is about $50 less expensive though, and it wasn't everything we'd hoped for. I think AMD still has some work to do in that department. But anyway, back to this model. Call it a Spectre x360 Lite. There's no dedicated graphics here. There's no 4K display option, but you do get a very similar looking design. You get a metal chassis, you get a backlit keyboard. The very, very attractive, nice looking machine, honestly, for this price range. Usually it's above $1,000 when you go for the really pretty ones. In that respect, I think it does outdo the Dell Inspiron 15-inch 7000 model 2-in-1, which is priced about the same. I think it's nicer looking. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but it's slimmer, it's sleeker, it's ooh la la. And the price for what you get isn't too bad either. Now, our model came from Computer Upgrade King, and you can see on the screen here their website, and one plus for getting through them, or you can also go through HP and do a build to order, is with this machine the standard configuration is a 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive with no SSD. Now, I'm not a total SSD snob. It's okay to have a boot hard drive, and especially in this price range, but for some reason HP's performance is just not real good with this hard drive. And it's not just installing software, which is at the beginning, when you get to know it, you're going to be mad at it already because it's going to take a while to install your programs. But I did notice even afterwards, program launch times were a little slower. So not the best implementation of a hard drive here. So I would say either go with Computer Upgrade King, and you can pick a variety of SSDs, and it does support PCIe NVMe SSDs, or you can get it if you do a build to order on HP's website as well. They go all the way up to a 1 terabyte SSD. In fact, for President's Day right now, they're having a special with hundreds of dollars off, but of course that's going to be only going on for a couple more days. Normally it would be quite expensive. This is not a fun machine to open. You know, if you watch my reviews, you know, I open up and show you how to disassemble and upgrade every single laptop we review. This is harder to open even than the Spectre x360. On the bottom there are several Torx T5 screws that are exposed. You can see them, you know where they are. Then you have to peel off the 2 adhesive attached rear rubber feet, not the front ones, to get to 2 Phillips head screws. Okay, well that's not the end of the world. Then you have to pry it off, and that's where the fun does not start to happen. I use my pry tools, it scarred those up, it scarred up my guitar picks, and I was afraid of actually damaging the machine, so we have to return this evaluation unit to Computer Upgrade King when we're done, and I don't really want to give them damaged goods back. So this is not one of the fun ones to open. Now for the rest of the specs, it's pretty good stuff here. The model that we have has 12 gigs of DDR4 RAM. Oddly, it's listed as dual channel RAM, you know, and hardware info actually shows that. So that means there are 2 RAM modules in here, which is a nice thing as long as you can get to them. So they have an 8 and a 4 gig module if you get that 12 gig standard configuration that we have. You can go up to a theoretical 32 gigabytes, and Computer Upgrade King will do that for you if you build or on HP's website. I think they stop at 16 there. Anyway, DDR4 RAM, Intel HD 620 integrated graphics, no dedicated graphics option here. There is an M.2 SSD bay, like I said, PCIe NVMe compatible. Our standard configuration here does not have a drive in that bay, though it just has the 2.5-inch hard drives, the usual 2.5-inch SATA interface with a 1 terabyte 7200 RPM hard drive in there. There's a couple of different capacities that are available for that drive as well. Like I said, get the SSD. It makes a big difference because this one can seem slower than it should at times because the specs are pretty high end here. The only thing I wasn't impressed with when it comes to the specs is that Wi-Fi. Intel 7265 AC, that's last generation. I don't know why HP is still using that, saving a little money, cutting corners. In terms of weight, it is 4.8 pounds, which is 2.18 kilograms. So like most 15-inch Ultrabooks, it's not the sort of thing you're going to use like an iPad, like a tablet, but it's kind of average in its weight class unless you really want to spend for one of the super duper light ones. It's a decent weight. So other than the hard drives really bringing down the performance of the machine, let's just not consider that for a moment and say you are going to upgrade it if you really care about performance. The Core i7 in here benchmarks well. It's the latest Intel 8th Gen quad-core CPU. The RAM is DDR4. All the rest of the performance metrics are right where we would expect them to be for a laptop in this class. And it is nice to get a Core i7 in this class in price. So how about heat and noise? It's better than the Spectre x360. I suppose you got the thinnification, no dedicated graphics going on here. It certainly helps. The fans, you'll hear them occasionally, but it's nothing that I ever found annoying. Even working it pretty hard, they weren't loud. And you can see in this performance graph here, the blue and the green lines are the temperature for the CPU and GPU, and this is all perfectly acceptable stuff. So here it reached 80 centigrade maximum, and that's when it's doing the hardest part of the PC Mark 8 benchmark that really stresses the CPU out a lot. So that's good stuff here in terms of cooling, heat, and noise. The display on this is... There's good news and there's bad news. It's IPS. It's typical HP super duper glossy display, too glossy really. There's a lot of reflections going on. The good news is it's nice looking. You boot it up and you say, oh, well, that's pretty nice looking, right? And then you do all the measurements. And then you try to use it in a super bright place and you say, oh, wow, it's not that bright. So this is one that's for indoor users. This is not for those who are going to go out on the sidewalk in a sunny cafe. 207 nits of brightness. And a premium laptop would typically have 300 or better nits of brightness. Even the competing Dell Inspiron beats it. I'd like to see at least 250 nits. But again, for indoor use, it looks fine. And you wouldn't guess until you take it to a very bright location. Color gamut is not impressive. You can see the figures on screen, but then for this price range, all the competitors are about the same. And just to look at it, you would think it's pretty nice, actually. You don't look at it and think, oh, washed out colors, bleh. It looks good. Gamma is spot on. The contrast ratio is pretty good. The factory calibration is abysmal, which isn't unusual in this price range. Again, calibrating it with our Spider 5 Elite colorimeter, it really improved a lot, but out of the box, it was very kind of blue-green looking. But even if you don't own a colorimeter, you can play with Windows settings for color calibration and try to dial in something that looks a little better to you. Ports on this are about average. Nothing that's going to totally wow you. It's got 2 USB Type A ports, 3.0. It has 1 USB-C port. That's Gen 1 USB-C, and you've got an HDMI port and a headphone jack. So there you have it. Nothing too amazing, but for a thin laptop, it's permissible. Keyboard on this is low travel. Now, so is the Spectre x360, but there's something about what HP did with that keyboard to make it feel really premium and good. This one's just low travel, and it feels like a low travel keyboard. It's not awesome to type on. It's not hideous either. It's just short, abrupt. It feels like it could use a little more damping. It is backlit, and they've got a number pad on here, which is a nice touch. The trackpad is pretty big. It, again, is not up to the Spectre x360, which is a very nice trackpad, very pleasant to use. This one it's okay. That's about it. You've got 2 speakers on this, up-firing with Bang & Olufsen branding, and like all HP laptops, it's not super loud. I think they must be worried that you're going to blow out your ears. I have no idea what the deal is with that, but the sound is okay. It's decent on it, too. Again, for this price range, it's perfectly fine. It's adequate enough to fill a small room, and it has enough bass that watching a movie is a reasonably pleasant experience. You're not going to run for the headphones. Inside there's a 55 watt-hour battery, which is kind of typical for a 13 to 15-inch Ultrabooks. That's on the upper end of capacity for that. And it equals about 6 hours of battery life. If you're running it at 40% brightness, which is lower than typical given the fact that it's not a very bright display, I would really want to run this one at 60% brightness to achieve that kind of, pleasant 150 nits for indoor use kind of thing. But it's not bad. It's not great. It's like everything else about this. I think the big selling point really is the design on it more than everything else, which is pretty much what you would expect for its class. It has a compact 45-watt HP square charger. It's the same ones we see in the Spectre non-convertible and the Spectre convertible as well. The hinges on it are robust. And I have no concern that they're going to hold up and last if you like to flip it back and forth to tent mode or tablet mode and all that sort of thing. So there you have it. In this price range, definitely one of the most design-wise attractive laptops I've seen that costs around $750 to $799, and the specs are pretty good for the price. They're fair. They're about what you're going to get from other makers. So you're basing your decision on whether you like the styling of this. If you like HP's IPS display over somebody else's, it's about the same color gamut as everybody else's in this price range, but a little less bright. So I'm not sure that's going to be something you're going to be excited about. The internals inside are nicely upgradable, but as you saw, it's so hard to open this up. I didn't want to damage the casing because we do have to return it to Computer Upgrade King, not mangled, that I'm not sure that's the selling point either, but at least you can build to order on HP's website and get it how you want, or order from Computer Upgrade King and have them do the upgrades too. So it's nice. It's versatilely configurable, shall we say. Performance-wise, if you go with an SSD, it's going to be pretty darn good, and I really do suggest that over a hard drive. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.